Hey everybody, this is Nick Singh, and you are now listening to Autographs. You know, when you stop looking for acceptance and you just enjoy your life, the whole game changes.
You have to understand yourself, and I think the real answer is real giving. Is that I don't understand why people don't get that if you give purely, you get.
We get good at what we do the most of. You nurture the process of going to yourself and listening to yourself, and you get very good at honing your own intuition.
Did I actually make people stop and go, whoa, humans are capable of more than I thought? If you're great at a certain skill and you can then put that skill to use to help somebody else, that's fulfillment.
My hope is that this show inspires you to just feel like you can just be yourself, have fun, and enjoy your life too. So enjoy and take care out there. I wonder what it's made of. Like, how many eggs are in eggnog?
I don't even know
Just
what nog is. What's
like
nog?
sugar, egg, and milk. Cool. Well, look, anybody listening to this, I love it. The New Year's coming up, and I wanted to get an episode out about dreaming. And what I mean by dreaming is not like the dreaming that you have at night, but the dreaming that you have in life. And we're going to talk about whether or not it's too late to accomplish your dreams or it's too late for you to dream. A common pattern I notice is that a lot of people actually give up on their dreams, or they don't have dreams, or they don't set dreams. They set goals, but they set these reasonable things. We're going to get to all that. But first, I wanted to tell a story about Juan recently accomplishing a dream of his, which was in Indianapolis. So, Juan, why don't you tell us about Indianapolis? What was happening? What was it about? Why were we there? And why did it matter?
So it was a conference, to give a little bit of context. For the past 7, 8 years of my life, I have been pursuing and at the same time doing professional speaking in the student education market. And there was this event that I'd stumbled upon probably a few months into starting this business, before I had a website, before I had booked any speeches, and before I even was comfortable with speaking in general. And this event was called National FFA. It used to be the Future Farmers of America. They've changed
Is that not what
to
it's called anymore?
no, it's now just the FFA Leadership Organization, because they're doing more leadership initiatives, and they're kind of they're still a leadership agriculture organization.
Yes, yes.
And
Can I
the other
anecdote? Can I anecdote on that for one moment?
yeah,
And so, as a heads up, Juan just talked about who he is. He's a speaker. And we were in Indianapolis, which is where this FFA leadership event is taking place. And I remember bumping shoulders with one of the people that was helping put it on. And I said, hey, by the way, excuse me if this sounds ignorant, and I don't mean it in a bad way, because I think what you all do here is wonderful. A lot of this speaking seems like it's about leadership and public speaking and all of this discourse. How does this have anything to do with farming and agriculture? Because it's like Future Farmers of America. And do you know the answer to that? Because his answer was really interesting.
so not directly, but I know the premise of the organization is
So what's your
to
answer? So what's your answer?
to build the future leaders in agriculture.
Got it. Okay. So then you got it and I didn't, because I didn't know that walking into the event. And so he basically said, yeah, I mean, that's what this started out. It started out as like introducing and creating community of people in agriculture in America. And then we realized really quickly that a lot of these agricultural students existed in rural areas, and they didn't have a lot of opportunity, like individuals living and kids living in the city, to socialize and become leaders and, stand up and talk and help change policy. And we noticed that a lot of things, especially farming back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, et cetera, these were the things that really mattered and helped push bills and legislation forward. So we began into the curriculum not only teaching about agriculture, but teaching about things like leadership, public speaking. And as a result, we've had several people go through this organization and run for office in their respective, municipality, state, et cetera, which I found really interesting and like a really wholesome approach to what they're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an awesome student organization, and a lot of the students that I met were not even that big into agriculture. Maybe they were trying a different career path, but they just loved the leadership aspect of it, which was awesome. Uh, but it was a crazy event, and there's so many people that are a part of FFA. It's the largest student-led organization in the US. I'm not sure if North America. I believe North America, but I do not quote me on that. I could be wrong. But their annual convention is, I think, the largest student event in North America, if not the world. Because it was, and I think this year they broke records, which I'm actually allowed to say. Before they were like, remember at the beginning, they were like, you're not allowed to say this yet because we haven't announced the number.
Yep.
I think it was like 61,000 people,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it like they like sold out both days
Yeah, it's
of
incredible. And for
yeah.
anybody who wants context, Juan was speaking at this event. It was being held in Indianapolis. They do it in a different, city every year. Right, Juan?
No,
Is that Oh,
no.
they always do it
They
in
do it
Indianapolis?
they do it they've been doing it in Indianapolis, so they used to change, but they've been doing it in Indianapolis for the past, like, I think 10 years or something. Like, the
Interesting.
city just knows.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I love Indianapolis. I've been there a few times, and oddly, I love it. I know it's Middle America. I actually really like it. I like it as a place to go.
It's a
But
cool
Juan was
city,
speaking
actually.
at Yeah, it was cool. And Juan was speaking at a place called Lucas Oil Stadium. And for context, that's where Taylor Swift performed. That's where all the big artists perform when they come. So when you could imagine a stadium packed, that's where he was speaking. Anyways, continue. So you're a speaker. You've been on this track for about 7 years now, and you finally get a shot at the big event. You heard about this event many years ago, early in your career. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it was in February of this past year, um, that I got the email basically saying, like, they've because they don't you don't reach out to an organization like that and say, like, "I wanna speak at your national conference," like, they have to pick you. It doesn't they get thousands of people that reach out wanting to speak at their conference because there's only one opening keynote that opens the event. There's only one, and they do it both days. The same person does both days. They do the same structure. So when they reached out in February and they're like, "Would you like to do this?" I was like, yeah, I guess. But it was just it was wild because I for the longest time, and I literally had a picture of this event put up on my bedroom wall, like at my parents' house. Like I had a picture of this event, and it was it was funny because I'd reached out initially and I'd wanted to be a part of it so bad, but then I was like, oh, you have to kind of just put in the reps and do the work, and then they'll find you eventually, and then they'll pick you, and then you have to be sort of chosen. And it was a cool, like, I guess, pinnacle of the career and everything that has culminated to that moment of, like, you have 30 minutes and then you're done, and that's it. And, like, you got 30 minutes and you don't get any do-overs and you don't get a second try, and you don't, like, that's it. You have to nail it. You have to crush it.
And how did it? I mean, how did it feel? How did it feel getting the news? And how did it feel? I mean, is it fair to say that this was a big dream of yours? I think that's fair to
Yeah.
say.
Oh, 100%.
Beautiful. And so, you said it was on your vision board.
Yeah, it was I literally had a picture of this event printed, and it was up on my wall, like right beside my desk when I was speaking in classrooms of like 7 to 9 people, and the speaking fee was a Starbucks gift card or a Tim Hortons gift card
How
or
many?
a coffee mug.
How many items percentage wise on your vision board have you accomplished roughly over the years?
Which vision board though?
Well, like every vision board. Like, do you just crush it every single year? I know you make a new one each year.
I make a new one each year, and a lot of the things on the vision board are like dynamic. So
Give me an
they're
example.
constantly changing.
I mean, for context, I've accomplished nothing on my vision board since 2018, and everything was due in 2021, and I still have it up, and I still stare at it. I moved and I left it at my mom's house because it's a glorious fail. I used to have it in my Zoom shots when I was first starting to work in corporate. I don't know if I told you this. I had my whole background behind me. You've been to my mom's place, and I had this vision board up, and it was really bait. Like, there's vision boards are cool, but I don't know if, like, there's something that you want to be showing everybody at work, or if, like, there's something you want in every single Zoom or virtual meeting that you have. Every person I had after like 10 meetings, they all commented on it. They said, "What's that?" And then I was like, "Oh, that's a vision board." And these are people that are like doing branding and stuff for McDonald's and these insane companies. And I'm like looking at them. They go, "Oh, well, what's that?" And they would point at, I have like a picture of an elephant on there. And they're like, "Well, what's that about?" It's just silly stuff. And so, yeah, I left it at my mom's. Any advice for me to accomplish more stuff, my vision board, buddy, or what?
Maybe pick new things or change approach to acquire said things.
All
So,
right, fair enough.
and also to note, a lot of the things on my vision board are a moving target. So they're never actually going to be achieved or attained. So, like, for example, the vision board that I have, it like right now, is there's a picture of like you and I on the beach. There's a picture of us all hanging out at our place in Toronto. There's a picture of an event that I already did. There's a picture of Gabby and I in Europe. So those are like, I see now the vision board as aspirational things. There's a picture of a 60-foot yacht because we did a yacht day with a bunch of our friends. That was last year. I think it was last year.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we
Yeah.
did one the year before. Like, so I'm more so like, this is the kind of life I want to live. So let me move towards that. Sure,
Interesting.
there's like bestseller and there's like specific things. Sure, there was a specific like goal of like, I want to speak at this event. But there's also things that are just constantly changing or that are constantly moving, where it's like, I want to travel. I want to spend time with the people that I love. I want to be able to have experiences like having a boat day in Florida. Like, those things are always going to be on there and they're always being achieved,
Yep. Dude,
even if it's through a FaceTime, you
absolutely.
know?
And so look, let's get into the nooks and crannies. So you did this thing in Indianapolis. I happened to be there for it. It was wonderful, man. And you crushed it. I've sung your praises, and you know that you did a great job. I wanted to ask you, and for anybody listening, I've also had the privilege of accomplishing some dreams in my life. You know, the vision board thing that I talked about is tongue in cheek. How did it feel? Whenever I've accomplished something big that, some lofty goal I've set my sights toward, my experience is that it was never the thing that I really look back on and reflect on and say, oh my God, I felt everything running through me. God, love, the universe, spirit just running through me in that moment. I felt so alive. It was that. Maybe you're like that. I know my experience wasn't. And there were certain things along the way that I picked up that became 10 times more meaningful. And so, how did it feel when you actually accomplished the dream? And for anybody listening, I hope you're paying attention. If you have had the privilege of accomplishing dreams in your life, I wonder if you relate to Juan or me. And two, if you haven't, this might be an interesting segment for you. So, how did that actually feel being at FFA, speaking on stage, leaving the stage, etc.?
If it felt like it felt incredible. And I couldn't have said that about other things that I've achieved, where other things I just kind of like, oh, okay, let's move on to the next thing. But I think it was because of the absolute train wreck of the 24 hours leading up to it, of like losing my voice, um, that I was just so happy to be there and to have a voice. I was like, I was genuinely over the moon about the fact that I could talk, because 24 hours before, I literally couldn't, and lost my voice for one of the first times in my career.
You played
So,
that really cool, by the way. Like, you played that really fucking cool. Because I
oh,
remember I
and I
was I,
wasn't.
I was concerned, but I wasn't gonna say anything. In the hotel prior to, I was like, dude, this guy doesn't have a voice.
No, I was not okay. I
Yeah,
was really not okay.
damn,
Like,
man.
it was bad. It
Got
was
it.
really bad. I couldn't. It was 8 p.m. the night before, and I couldn't talk. I literally couldn't talk. I had no high, I had no low, I had no floor. Like, I had nothing in my voice. And like, I think that helped me get more present in for the event, and really actually helped me enjoy it, cuz I remember I was backstage and I was like, I'm so happy I can talk. And I was like using my voice and like practice. I was like, oh, I sound good. I sound normal. But like, normal is something that often we take for granted, and I take for granted, and I take my voice like as it sounds right now super for granted. And like, I was like, I sound like myself. Let's freaking go. Yesterday I sounded like Miley Cyrus. Like, it was bad.
You did
So,
you did sound like my so what you're saying is that it felt good.
yes.
Got
Yeah.
it.
It
And
felt incredible.
okay, I want to build off that for a moment. And so we're gonna come back to it, but I want to build on it in a different way. My hunch is that a lot of people, especially as they grow up, they lose the ability to dream. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think people get to a place where they're told that they need to be to be realistic, and that there are priorities that you have to tend to in life, and that you can't just, I think the association to dreaming is being irresponsible at times. People are like, you need to be responsible, you need to grow up, you need to take things seriously, you need to have a plan and take your future. I'm like, but having a dream and a goal that you want to pursue and taking it seriously is in my opinion, is the thing that you want to hold on to, because I find that people are like, oh, I have to be more serious. I have to let go of my dream. That's just a version of giving up. That's a version of giving up and settling for a less exciting dream. Like getting a job that covers everything that you can and you're just scraping by. That's a version of a dream, just one that excites you less.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take, and I happen to agree with you. And what is it in a word do you think that keeps most people from dreaming? Is it disbelief in themselves? Is it that they don't think that they're enough? Is it that they start believing other things about society? Is it self-doubt? What do you think in a word it is that prevents people from living and even having dreams in the first place?
I think it's, in a word, self-doubt. What they need is self-confidence, because I find that self-doubt, it's not fear, because we're afraid of a lot of things all the time.
Mhm.
Like fear naturally comes up. It is a part of it. But what is fear? It's doubting whether you're going to be safe. It's doubting whether you're going to be accepted. So the actual the root there is like, you have like, it's no, I'm just doubting whether it's going to work out, whether I'm going to fail, whether it's going to be scary, whether I'm going to get the promotion, whether I'm going to do well, or the business is going to take off. So I do think it is self-doubt, that people doubt themselves. And the problem is that people see doubt as a sign to stop, as opposed to as a sign to keep going and
Well,
get better.
why is it a sign to keep going? Talk to me about that. Not everybody has that mentality.
Yeah, because I see doubt as a signal. Like doubt for me, whenever I'm doubting myself, that is a signal to, that's an area of your life you need to improve. So it's time to get better and it's time to pour in. It is time to do more for that area of your life. And I feel like sometimes people see their weaknesses as set in stone, as opposed to something that you actually have influence over. And you can say, my weaknesses are actually potential strengths waiting for me to say, hey, you're actually great. And you can figure this out. It's not that you suck, it's that you're just not good yet.
Yes, yes. One dude, you and I see eye to eye on this. We've had this conversation before. Interestingly enough, I mean, I've missed this in my life. There's a huge conversation these days around manifesting, etc. And even for me, I've winced over it. I've read the book several times, but Think and Grow Rich, I think one of the first chapters is literally desire.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people, they go into these modes where, they start pursuing goals, but the actual nucleus of them is something that they kind of mildly sort of want. And part of that is that they forgot to dream. They forgot to do things that excite them. They forgot to really cast something that they thought, hey, this is kind of unreasonable, but Jesus, this excites the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And that feels like it's at the core of a lot of your successes. You and I have been friends for a while, and I've witnessed, you climb a lot of really incredible mountains. I know how much you've wanted those things. And so like how much of that is a part of the equation? And then also too, how do you create that? How do you nurture that? How do you listen to that? How do you find those things? And is it the things that you're like 10 out of 10 on that you write down on a vision board, or do you even write down things that are 7 out of 10? What do you classify as a dream, and what do you classify as desire? Is desire something that you can create, or is it something that just shows up and that you build off of?
I definitely think it's something you can create, and you can have a dream or a goal or a desire that gets nurtured and you care about it more, because you have leverage, you have a reason to care about it more. Just like, let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, you have a best friend that wants to start this business, that wants to start this business with you, and you guys have been talking about this thing, and you've been dreaming about doing this thing together, but it's never gotten off the ground because there hasn't really been a reason. And then tragically, that friend dies in a car crash. What's the likelihood of your desire to now start that business to really make his name live on and make it feel like that connection to him still lives on and still exists? You're probably going to have a little more drive and desire to do that, because you want to create a legacy not only for you but for him as well. So I think there is something to be said about a burning desire and having sort of a vision for what you want and a dream, but I think it's the less important part,
What's the more important part then?
executing on said vision, executing on the goal. I do not care what you have on your vision board. I don't care how positive you are. I literally don't care what desire you have or at the law of attraction, what it's going to bring to you. If you don't actually put in the reps and put in the work and face the fear consistently of what you want to that what you don't want to do, you're not going to get a result. Like I just it the delusion that a lot of people have is that I just need to think my way into success. And confidence has become this idea, especially in all the research, is so cerebral. It's like, oh, you can just think yourself into self-esteem. It's like, no, 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 no. You can't wait and think yourself into confidence. You have to give yourself proof. Like you need proof as to why you should feel confident. So people are like, I want to feel, I want to feel more confident in myself. Then give yourself proof in the perspective so that when you look back on who you are and who you're being, oh, I actually have some proof there. It's like, I want to feel confident in who I am and my physical fitness, but you never go to the gym. How the heck do you expect yourself to feel confident in that? But if you start to go to the gym and then you start by being able to do one push up and now you can do five and then you can do 12 and then you can do 15, you're like, whoa, your confidence increases because of the proof that you give yourself, not because of the positivity that you prime your brain with every day.
1,000,000% eye to eye on this. And so for anyone listening, I mean, how what I interpreted you just saying as is saying, yes, desire is certainly part of the equation. Sometimes, I mean, if you could, compare it to a fire, you have a little flame. And then what you got to do with that flame is you fan the shit out of it through action, through execution, and it grows. And sometimes in life, you're blessed with a fucking raging inferno. It's right in front of you. You just got to go take action on it. In either of the situations, the thing of desire is something to sure listen to, pay attention to, understand, but the far more important part is nurturing it, because that's actually going to be about whether or not you get it or don't. And so you've been somebody in our life that, in our friend group, we reference this constantly, that you are incredible at just showing up. And so for anybody out there dreaming, what advice do you have for them? I mean, is it extreme? Do I ditch the job? Do I quit? Or do I start dreaming as a side hustle? What advice do you have? But before you give that advice, I actually have a more important question. How do you habitually and systematically show up for your dream? Because I think that, you and I, we talk about this quote often, and I think you're the first person who said this to me, but I believe also James Clear said it. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits and your systems. What systems do you have in place? Let's get tactical. Let's give people real things to walk away with, where every single day or 5 days a week or 3 days a week, whatever it is for you, you show the fuck up for the things that matter most to you, whether or not they make money, they're working, you're afraid or you're not, you just show up. What systems do you have in place and how has that helped you?
I think the most important thing is that a lot of people act based on the way that they're feeling as opposed to based on the goals that they have. If you act based on the way that you're feeling, my brain will very rarely give me the best option for progression. It'll very rarely give me the best path forward to growth because here's why. 80% of our thoughts on a daily basis are negative. National Science Foundation did a study. 80% of our thoughts on a daily basis are negative. 95% of them are repeated from the day before. 95%. So it's not that you're negative or tired or lazy or procrastinating. You just have some bad habits. So I could focus on consistently doing the things that I do not want to do every single day. The reason why every single day I'm up at 5 in the morning is because I hate it. I don't like it. It's a literal mechanism to teach me to not negotiate with what my mind is telling me because sometimes you're not the best person to make decisions. Like 5 in the morning me is not the best person to make decisions. It isn't. So whether it's finding accountability for yourself and saying, okay, I have this friend that I'm going to say, let's meet at the gym every day at 6:30 in the morning or at 7 in the morning. Great. If it's a struggle for you to get to the gym. So then honestly, we will do more for other people than we'll ever do for ourselves. So then what are you going to do when you wake up and you're tired, groggy, have just eye crispies and you don't want to get out of bed? But that you see a text from that person that says, "Hey, running a little late. I'll see you there in 5 minutes or I'll see you there 5 minutes later." Oh, I got to go. I have to go because you're not going to let other people down, but you'll let yourself down.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
we'll let ourselves down all the time. You won't let someone else down.
1,000%. And so, I mean, the concept you're talking about is leverage and accountability, which I love. here's a system. I'm not sure if I shared this with you. You do this naturally. This has really worked for me though, having a really bright line and a bright area of whether or not I can pursue my dream in. And what I started doing is I woke up a long time ago and I said, listen, I really want to do certain things in my life. And every single week I have the exact same thought. And if it's not every week, it's every day. If it's not every day, it's every month. And it's I'm actually just not taking action toward these things. I have this desire. Step one, if anybody listening to this wants to dream, give yourself permission and be brave and dream, because it can happen and it's always worth it. Two is that, okay, great. What do I have to do? I got to fan those flames. How do you fan those flames? You fan them through action. Part of that is saying that you don't typically rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits and your systems. And if you're naturally just great at taking action on that thing on a consistent enough basis, you're set. You just need to make the decision and go. Juan, you're someone like that. I've witnessed you work. You're somebody like that. I've seen you do it time and again. I'm not. I need really bright lines in my life of saying, okay, this is what I do and this is what I don't. I came up with this concept 4 or 5 years ago, and it's hilarious. It's just 30-minute sessions. That's all I do. Literally every single day, once a day, 7 days a week, no matter what. It can be someone's birthday, it could be raining, it could be snowing, it could be at 1 a.m. I will not miss. And I have an accountability partner for this, but I would do it for myself, and I've done it long enough. I say, I'm going to turn my phone clock on. I literally do this on my apps right now. I can show you my screen time. My number one app is my clock. It's insane. I turn my phone clock on, I put it on a timer. I turn everything off. I turn emails off. I turn texts off. I turn calls off. I'm hard to get a hold of. It's usually why. And I just work on my dream. It's how I relaunch this podcast. It's how I'm going to do other things. It's how I'm going to start doing things I work on. Typically, that 30 minutes turns really easily into 40, really easily into 45. Some days it's a fucking drag. I don't even know what the fuck to do for the 30 minutes some days. And I find something and I take action. And I don't negotiate with myself. It's just 30 minutes, hard nose, callous around the mind. I do it no matter what. And so, have you ever built a system like that for yourself? Have you ever needed it? Are there any other tactical things you picked up along the way that other people have done? You said, oh, that doesn't work for me, but that's actually a good idea that you want to share here for people in pursuit of their dreams?
Yeah, I would say I definitely am stealing the sort of like countdown timer of that like flow of I'm going to do this for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it is. But I'll put my phone in the other room. That's been an amazing system for me because, like, on average, we spend 1 to 2 hours a day on social media alone, like the average person. And that's different judgments or context switches over 1,000 times of a context switch, a change by like swiping. So that's a lot. So I'll put my phone in the other room. I will sort of like drown things out and say, I'm going to do this sprint for 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is. So that's been really helpful. And then the second thing that has probably changed the trajectory of my ability to achieve a lot of the things that I've wanted to achieve more than anything is energy management.
Yes. Talk to people about this, man. I admire you for this. So do people in our friend group. And I just want to take a beat here and be anecdotal. Look, I know on this show, I've had the privilege of speaking with a handful of people. I can tell you honestly, not all of them are happy and fulfilled. Some of them, they have this wall of highlights of incredible achievements. Juan happens to be one of my closest friends. He's somebody who has achieved a shit ton of really cool things in his life, especially at the age he's at. Him and I are both in our late 20s, but he's also insanely fulfilled and happy. And there's plenty of people that pass you by each day that are either upset, pissed off, rich, poor. Juan's got this great thing going for him. And I can tell you, since I've known him, what he's about to talk about next might be one of the most valuable things you hear in 2023, walking into 2024. Not to over give context here and give too much pre context to the point that you're nervous. But that's a context I want people to have walking into this segment, because what you're about to say has changed my life, seen it change our friends' lives, seen it change yours, excited for it to change anyone who's listening. So quite the pre-frame.
Perfect pre-frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most important thing I'm going to say because it has changed my life more than anything I've ever done, any book I've read, any course I've been to. Uh, it's been everything. And I'll run through this pretty quickly because there are three sort of categories or elements of energy. A lot of people think it's like, oh, what food do I eat and what water do I drink and do I get good sleep? Sure, that's an elemental layer. The non-negotiable that I have for physical energy is going to the gym every single day. Yes, I do that for the health benefits. I also do that for the psychological benefits of it makes me feel more energetic. I feel more primed, even if I feel like a zombie driving to the gym in the morning at 5 and it's dark out. I feel better physically. So there are three like very hard line, tangible things that you need to look at in your life and say, where am I at and where can I improve in these? Number one is your physical energy. Are you going to the gym? Are you eating kind of some like good whole foods, some greens, drinking water, not having the pasta with a side of bread every day? So, are you like having good physical energy habits, practices? The second is psychological energy. I think all of us could agree that you can think yourself into tired. The easiest hack to be able to think yourself into more energy is excitement. I literally think of things I'm looking forward to, excited about constantly, every single day. We just booked a trip. I'm super excited about that. So, because when you are excited, it builds anticipation. And the research shows that the more anticipation you're in, the more excitement you have, and your energy increases in the moment, more so than being in the actual experience.
Before you get to the third pillar, everybody listening, I want you to really focus on that second one. This is tactical advice Juan's giving you. It's not theoretical. It's not theory. It's fucking tactical. Move your body, eat good food, drink water, focus on things that excite you is not, I repeat, it is not being layman and saying, oh, it would be cool to do this. It'd be cool to do that. No, Juan is going to an American Thanksgiving. That's happening. That's
Yep.
real. He's actually excited about something that is really happening in his life. Like he's not sitting here dreaming about about it would be great to see the sun during the Canadian winter. I'm excited for whenever that might happen. That ain't it. That ain't it.
And the problem is we have a lot of these, I call them excitement anchors throughout the year, but they're so few and far between and they're so spaced out. So you'll have Thanksgiving and then you'll have Christmas and then you'll have a birthday. And then what happens is in between, there's these massive lulls or dips of energy where people are like, well, it's just friggin' tax season right now. I can't get excited. It's like, well, no. How can you schedule excitement every week? How can you schedule excitement every single week? And if you're looking at your calendar over the next 7 days and nothing excites you, then schedule something. Then schedule it in your calendar. If there's a lull or if you're feeling a slump, there's two places you go. What am I doing with my body? Am I moving my body and am I feeding myself good fuel? Number two is, am I focused on things I'm looking forward to? Because we understand now that our default setting is negativity. It genuinely is. It isn't like positive. You can't positive think your way exclusively into and just I'm going to be a positive person. It's like, but you're designed not to be. We're designed not to be positive people. We're designed to survive, which is why our brains are designed to focus on the 80% of things that are negative or dangerous. So you have to tap into the 20% that excites you, that you can look forward to or anticipate, because when you do that, it produces energy.
And what was the third pillar? So we
And
have
the
pillar one being
third
physical energy, pillar two, psychological energy. Is that correct?
The
Beautiful.
third pillar is environmental energy, which is you can surround yourself with people, and I'm sure you've had the experience where you talk to someone, after talking to them, you feel like you need to take a nap. Like, you can be in an environment of people that just drain your energy, or you can be in an environment of people that give you energy. You've got to kind of do an environment audit of be like, who am I kind of spending the most of my time with? And are they bringing me energy or are they taking energy away from me?
I would
So,
also add to that and just say one of the when I first heard this, I was early to self help and personal development. I'm sorry to cut you off, but and I remember one of the things I took away was I can't be around anybody when they're negative. That's a really bad way to live.
mhm,
Then you're effectively like removing yourself from helping people. A lot of people need help, and shit, I've been negative at times. The advice here, correct me if I'm wrong, is not to not have negative people in your life. It's to know that, hey, there's a difference between being negative all the time and always having a problem and never having a solution, and also be just actually going through something as a
yep.
person and helping them. And so I don't want people to walk away from this and say, Jesus, I need to erase negative people from my life. That's bad advice. And I know that's not what you're saying. I just want to create the distinction for anybody listening.
Yes, I totally agree. There's a difference between venting and being there and having you're going through a season of your life where you need that support and talking through things, because I think that is very healthy and it's necessary. There's a difference between that and complaining for an hour about the barista getting your Starbucks drink order wrong and how they're such a terrible person and be able to do your job. You have one thing to do and you mess that up, because we all know those kinds of people as well,
Yep.
that sometimes they will find something to complain about. They will find something to be negative about. And it's defining or seeing, is this a friend that's going through something, or is this a toxic relationship that's dragging me down? Most people are able to differentiate the two. Most people, you can tell the difference when someone is just like, oh, I just hate, I just hate this person, and they're talking about other people, and they're just complaining about things that don't matter, as opposed to sharing about the things that do. So yeah, I totally agree with that distinction. It is not to cut off the negative people in your life, but just see, are you holding the people in your life to a standard that you also want to live by?
Yes.
So,
And
like, for
go ahead.
for
Go
for
ahead.
me, for the friends in my life, and you know this, like, I don't let the people in my life complain about meaningless things, because I'm the same. Like, I want to have that perspective of our problems or things that a lot of people would be grateful for. I'm totally about the venting and the totally about sharing where you're at, but also, like, let's live in some excitement and gratitude, because I just can't stand people complaining of, oh, things are so hard, oh, traffic sucks, oh, like, oh, you get to drive in a car that you could, by the way, never build by
Yep.
yourself. By
Fact.
yourself. If you were
Fact.
given the materials to build a car fully, front to back, you were given the materials and the tools, and you were given a year, but you don't have the internet and you don't have anyone else's help, I promise you're not building the car.
One
I
dude,
promise.
I've
You're not doing it.
literally like it, like touch wood this doesn't happen. But in the event that there was like a mass event, super volcano, whatever, right? And I was one of the people that survived, I would be so unhelpful to that group of people that are left. I have no idea how to do anything
Yep.
outside of this shit. This shit won't matter. Anyways, I want to get back to dreaming, and then I have some great questions for you. And I know that we're coming up on time. So, why does energy matter, man? I mean, you and I went off there and we both got excited about it. Why does it even matter on the conversation of dreams, on desire? Why has it been the X factor for you?
Because it is the determining factor whether you get there or not.
And so most people don't get that. Why is that the determining factor? And why isn't it the action? Why isn't it the quality of the goal? Why isn't it the clarity? Why isn't it the other things that everybody else focuses on?
Because we understand that action is a necessary component of achieving a dream. Like, if you have the dream of getting in shape, you're not going to do that if you don't take action to go to the gym. Like, that is just it is the science and the math of achievement. Like, that is the formula, that is the equation. The more action you take, but the part that a lot of people don't get is that the step before action is having the energy to invest in, is having the energy to actually, like, you're not going to be able to take action if you're exhausted. You're not going to be able to take action if you're, the two missing pieces of action are courage and energy. If someone's afraid, they're not going to take the action, because fear often makes people either fight, flight, or freeze, and just stop in their tracks, and it can paralyze them of, like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. But also, that's the first thing. The second is that, oh, I want to take this action. I don't know where I'm going to find the energy for it. Oh, but going to the gym is just like so much, but I don't know where to start. So then people quit because they don't have the energy. I've asked this question hundreds of times, where if you have a level 1 energy towards a goal, are you going to achieve it? By and large, everyone agrees, probably not. But if you bring a level 9 or 10 energy to a goal, are you going to find a way to get it done? Absolutely. So energy is kind of like the spark that starts the engine, that gets things going, so that you can sustain the action even when it gets hard. So you can sustain
Yes.
the action even when it gets scary.
And in my experience, um, two things I want to add on to that. I want to hear about whether or not you agree. Then I have some rapid fires for you on this. Is um, Energy, okay, great. Energy is a great prerequisite to dreaming and to taking action. I entirely agree with you. Um, One is that it's not linear, meaning that oftentimes the thing that creates the energy is doing the action. Like, I don't wake up early in the morning and feel an insane amount of energy to go to the gym. I don't. And I know you don't as well. Being at the gym really does it for me. And so sometimes doing the action first is actually what builds the energy. And so it's this weird thing. It's an art. It's certainly not a science, this energy conversation. Two, probably if I were to look at a year as a whole, my energy that I aim for, that I find to be productive, helpful, help me toward my goals, is between, if I'm honest, a 7 to an 8.5 on average throughout the year. On average, that's where I generally am. I'm between a 7 and an 8.5. I don't think you need to make a goal to have 10 out of 10 energy before you start. I don't think that on average you need to have this insane standard of saying it's got to be a 9, it's got to be a 9.5, it's got to be a 9.9, it's got to be a 10. Would you agree with the first part of it not being linear and sometimes the action begets the energy, or the energy begets the action? And then secondly, what's your number throughout the year that you typically aim for? What standard should people be reaching toward in this?
For sure. So I do agree that action produces more energy, and that it's sort of this system that if you can tap into it really becomes just, you become unstoppable. But I also think, like, to get yourself to the gym, there's that micro, like, I have to stand up. I have to, like, it's a little bit of energy even if it's a 1 out of 10, it still is enough to get you there. And then once you take the action, then it produces more of it, which is awesome. So that's sort of my thoughts on that. The piece on where my energy is at in a given year, my average in a year, uh, I'll give you the average in like the past month, because thinking a year I've had like, I feel like the month is more of of a a picture of where I'm at. I would say, and this is sort of my point on this, you have to find what your 10 out of 10 is, because energy, here's a misconception that a lot of people have. Energy is like off the wall and wired and you're fired up, and like, energy could also be focused and intentional, directed towards working on a project. Like a 10 out of 10, for me yesterday, I was reading, I was at a 10 out of 10. I was not remotely tired, but I was fully present, fully engaged in what I was doing. I will be fully present, fully engaged in Thanksgiving this week. 10 out of 10. So my score this past 30 days is probably like a 9 or a 10, because I'm doing all of the things that I know provide my 10 out of 10. I'm not off the wall and wired all the time. I'm just do my best to stay fully engaged, fully present, fully locked in what I'm doing. So don't think that even if you're introverted, even if you feel like you're a little more mellow, even if you feel like you're a little more, that can still, you can find your 10 out of 10 energy,
Yes.
your 10 out of 10,
Yes.
which in my mind is fully engaged in the moment, fully present with what you're doing, fully immersed in relationships and conversations with people. Like, that's my version of 10 out of 10.
10,
Doesn't mean
10.
off the wall wired, but
You're right. You're right. And I still stand by my 7 to 8 point, but that feels great for me. And so really what you and I are talking about is just different rules that we have for what, having great energy is. The
exactly.
objective is to just have great energy. And whether you
Mhm.
call that your vibe, your energy, your state, your ability to affect others, it's up to you. Couple more questions on dreaming. Do you have a hard out at noon, by the way?
No.
Okay. All right, beautiful. We might go an extra 15. Is that cool?
Mhm.
Great, because there's some questions at the end I really wanted to get to. So, um, let's talk about people in peculiar situations that, uh, they have a job. They also have a dream. Do they quit? Do they ditch it? Do they not? What's your take and perspective here?
I think it very much so depends where you're at in your specific situation. If you're able to, I'm a big fan of making decisions that are kind of, there's this duality to it. I'm a big fan of burning your boats and saying screw it and let's go for it. But I'm also a big fan of making smart decisions and being measured and tactical. So I think it very much so depends on your situation. Do you have a 6 month runway? Do you have a year runway? Or are you kind of going month to month? Are you living with your parents at home, or do you have it family. Like there's so many variables to consider that no one is going to be an appropriate answer for another. So that being said, I can only share my experience where I remember when I was starting out and I was not making any money and I had this dream of I wanted to be a professional speaker. I was in college and I dropped out and I moved back in with my parents and I was living there for a year and a half or 2 years while I was building this thing. And then before I was ready, I moved out and I moved into a condo that I could not afford. This is not professional financial advice. I moved out and I remember stressing and like being so anxious about making it work. But that made me book more speeches. That made me build the business. So then I was able to really grow that year significantly because of the pressure. Because for me personally, only me, this is not for anybody else, only for me, I see pressure as like a privilege. Like I'm like, pressure really works for me. And when I'm in a pressure cooker, I grow to a whole nother level. But for some people, that doesn't work. So I would say, like, find your specific situation and you don't need to pick one or the other. You can do both. You can have a job where you work all day and then in the evenings you work on the dream. On the weekends you work on the dream and you have the opportunity and the chance to move the needle in those things and make those happen. I remember there was a lot of times where I was working like two different jobs and then over a long weekend, i.e. like a Thanksgiving long weekend, I was working on the dream. I was working on the speaking. I was working on my website when everyone else was relaxing or taking time off.
Yep, and it's a great answer. I was recently listening to. I agree with you. You know, it's not black and white; it's colorful, and you gotta make mistakes and figure out what your situation's like. I was listening to The Rock on Joe Rogan, and they were talking about how when The Rock put together this campaign for Maui, God bless all the individuals in Maui, and how they're fighting for peace and fighting for change. And he got a lot of flack on social. Him and Oprah did for wanting to raise money for people that were in a real financial struggle, and it took him a long time to figure out why people were so upset about him asking for money, and then he realized, shit, I was once there too. And there's people that follow the rock, that love the rock, that are in really dire straits. They don't have a penny to their name. They're not just living paycheck to paycheck. Shit, paycheck to paycheck's not even doing it for them. And they don't have any space emotionally to think about giving anything to another, even if that person is so insanely in need of help, because they're insanely in need of help. This is an extreme example to illustrate that it is black and white. Some people do really well under pressure. Some people do extremely well, like yourself, when they're broke. And there's also seasons of life where right now that's a really bad idea for if you have a family or if you have
Mhm.
expenses or if you're really just bad at being broke. I mean, I remember there was a period of my life I wasn't making any money for a bit. It's the only thing that I could think about. The only thing. And I was willing to do basically anything to stop that. And doing art, the things I really enjoy, they came as a consequence of me doing that first. And so, whatever your answer is, I would suggest you go with it. And I suggest you're fucking honest with yourself. If you do that answer and you realize I'm dogging it on my dream, make a change. Make a damn change because your dream is worth it. We live in a world where there's tremendously capable people, especially in Western society. Most of us have the privilege of being decently educated and aware that there's things in life that a lot of people around the world don't have access to. It is a world that is in dire straits of needing you to dream, needing you to be excited, needing you to show up as your best self, dare to dream, not just because of yourself, but because of others. Dovetailing off of that, in 3 words, what would you say stops most people from dreaming?
In 3 words.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a sentence. It could be, word, comma, word, comma, word, comma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, fear, judgment, and tenacity.
Why did tenacity make the list? What does that mean to you?
It is the willingness to do whatever the heck it takes.
Love that. In a word or 3 words, you can do the same thing. What helps people accomplish their dreams? Why do the people who accomplish their dreams in 3 words?
motive, tenacity, conviction.
Ooh, is conviction something you start with or build?
Build.
Do you still dream? Kind of goes
all the,
without saying.
all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Like my fiance, Gabby, knows that like I am constantly out to lunch thinking about my next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, like always. I'm always thinking about that. And the difference that I've had to learn that really makes the difference is I don't only dream. I like, okay, this is sick. This is what I want to go for. This sounds awesome. Now let's get to work.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Here's my final question on dreams. And by the way, I knew you dream. I just want people to hear that you still do, and you walk in the talk. Is uh, you and I have done a fair bit of self help, personal training, self development. A lot of people listening to this do the same stuff. There's been, a quote that's been thrown around in Tony Robbins' world, which is that it's not about the goal; it's about who you become in the process. That never resonated with me, but I think I get it. And this is the final Yoda, in my opinion, point on dreaming. I touched on this earlier. It's never for me been the thing. I mean, it was a dream to go meet Gary Vaynerchuk in New York City. I was privileged and blessed enough to have done it. It wasn't that moment that really did it for me. It was oddly, when I look back at that experience, one of the most special moments was me sitting at a Starbucks beforehand, writing a blog post, aka a journal, about how I was feeling in that moment. And it was hours beforehand. And that was it. That's what I remember most. And I also remember, a couple moments after with his team in his office. I thought that was really special. I learned some stuff there. And that's been a constant at every, big milestone or mountain I've climbed. What is your take on this? Is it the dream itself that usually makes it worth it when you accomplish it, or is it something different? And if it was something different, how would you put your finger on what that is? How would you define that?
Like when people say like it's about the destination, not the journey,
You nailed
right?
it. Exactly.
I think that is so ridiculous. Because I think it's the opposite. It's absolutely about the destination. That's what most people get wrong. It's like, it's not, no, no, no. What actually keeps you on the journey is having a destination you're excited about enough. If you don't actually give any juice or fire to the destination, you're not going to even take the journey, or the journey is going to be less exciting, or you're eventually going to stop, break for water, and say it's not worth it. I think way too many people overemphasize all like it's the process. Enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. It's like, but what are you actually working towards? Like, for example, I'm really, and not a lot of people know this about me, but we'll say this about the show. You obviously know this about me. I'm super into watches, into like watch collecting. And it's like it's been a passion of mine since I was probably like in grade 7. For some reason, I've just been enamored by like just what they represent and different milestones and being able to attach miles like watches to milestones that you achieve. And honestly, some of the watches that I want are just ridiculous and are so much money, and it's absurd. And it's not even for me. It's not about the watch. It's about the pursuit of it. It's like that is something that excites me, and that's something that I'm really like I'm moving towards. And
What is
I'm
that
really
pursuit? What does that pursuit give you though? That's the thing I want to put a finger on. What does it give you that makes it so fucking fulfilling and so worth it?
so it's the excitement of being someone that could achieve that thing. It's the like it generates the energy, and it was sort of to the point of like what we talked about in terms of anticipation, that when you're in anticipation, like the studies that they've done, when you're in anticipation, you feel more of the good feelings than you do in the actual moment. So if you're anticipating a trip or a vacation, you feel more excited now than you do on the actual trip. Like it's been proven countless times. So for me, it is about the destination, because the destination, if it's exciting enough, it will have me weather any journey. It will have me weather any sort of thing along the way, where I feel like people put an overemphasis on the journey and then they lose sight of the destination. And then they're like, what the heck is this for? And then they eventually quit.
Yeah, man, I think that's a hot take, and right when you said it, I agreed with you. It is. What the fuck do you mean it's not about, of course it's about the destination. Of course
Yeah.
it's about what you're doing. You have to make that clear. And I think what you learn along the way is that just how you feel when you're in pursuit of something that means something to you is you feel whatever you call it spiritually, God, love, the universe. You feel it running through you, not always, but sometimes. And it's a wonderful feeling. And it also, if and I know, you're really into watches, which I love. um, you know, there are dreams in life that have to do with, not just yourself and materials, but they have to do with impacting others, which I know you have as well. And they also help you make sense of your life. They help you make sense of pain. They help you make sense of no's. They help you make sense of rejection, not just toward the thing, but toward others. God, you could be pursuing, a career or a dream to become a YouTuber, and a girl might reject you. And then you might just say, great, more time for me to do my thing. I mean, like it's crazy how it's just an organizing principle around your life. And I think that we were always meant to have this, but in society today it feels lost because people are at the helm of their new year's resolutions. And I would encourage anybody listening to this is make some resolutions, really make some changes into your life that feel meaningful. For God's sakes, put on the list one dream that you have and take a swing. And if you don't believe that you could do it, don't set it to be a year. Set a dream within a quarter. See if you could do something cool within a quarter. Maybe that's land a dream client. Maybe that's go out on a trip. Maybe that's an accomplishable dream like I don't know, something within a quarter that you can just prove to yourself, oh, I can do this. Maybe you could do it in a month. Never forget to dream. I meet people a lot that have done well and they're always dreaming. And I think that one of the highest uses of our time is to be brave enough to do that. And so yeah, I mean that's the closed loop on dreaming, but I have some other questions. Juan, do you have any final notes on dreaming?
No, I think you nailed it in that it's never too late, it's never too early, it's never too much, it's never too little. Just to say, like, this is what I want and be bold enough to actually go for it.
Hell yeah, man. That's what life's about. Cool. All right, let's dive into the bonus section. So this one is a tribute by and large to you, man. I mentioned earlier that you're somebody who's definitely achieved and then also incredibly fulfilled and happy with the way he's living his life, which made me want to ask you these questions. And these have, to do with dreams, but they don't, and you'll understand what they mean in a moment. And so here's one. If you could have everybody in the world experience one thing, what would that thing be?
You
I'm
know
pretty
what the
sure you
you know
you gave me this question.
you know what the first thing that came into my mind was, like, immediately?
What?
A cold plunge. For
Like,
for 2
if there
minutes.
isn't proof that Juan is like a psychopath, that's it.
Like,
But I actually
I
agree
don't
with you.
yeah, I don't know why that came into my mind. Just something hard. Something hard. Yeah, that. Yeah,
That honestly, that's a fucking good answer, man. That's a
yeah.
really good answer. I like that. Um, you'll like this one. Where do you go when you're afraid, scared, or nervous? What do you do?
Workout.
Okay, what if you can't work out in that moment?
Um, like, are you asking me, like, specifically, what do I do when I'm nervous and when I'm
Correct,
afraid?
correct, correct. And the first question is where do you go? So what type of thoughts do you begin having? What type of considerations do you begin having?
Oh,
And then
I'll
what do you do with that?
I'll stretch out the timeline, meaning, will this matter in 5 years? The answer is typically no. Like, almost every time, the answer is no. Like, will this matter even in a year? Like, will this matter in November of 2024? Like, eh, and the answer is almost always no. So then what's the next right action? Then I ask myself that follow-up question, and then I go do that.
Wow. And who do you become though when you feel afraid? Like I want this to feel relatable for people because feeling afraid is a surface level thing, but the thoughts that you have and the things that you feel are a different story. A lot of people could relate to that. So what type of thoughts do you begin having? And I'm not, necessarily saying that you go deep, but I think people would be surprised to realize how damn common the thoughts that we all have when we're afraid.
Yeah, it's irrational. Like, it's not gonna work out. You're terrible. That you're People are gonna figure you out. You're never gonna be able to make this career work. What if you peaked? What if the best days are behind you? And, like, it's so ridiculous to think,
Yeah.
but those feelings and those thoughts are so real in that moment, and they're so pervasive, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, is this really b" or like, uh you might as well just stop. Like, why try so hard? What's the point? And that's a scary one.
Hmm.
Whenever my mind goes to, and this happens, like for me, it happens a lot, and I still to this day, I will be like, "Whoa, that's crazy that you thought that." Of like, what's the point? Because that's really close to like, what's the point of life? Which I remember those moments in high school and college. Like I remember those thoughts vividly, and I still feel that creeping back. And I'm like, I thought I got over that. And like it still comes up. So in those moments, I like let those thoughts come in. I don't judge them. I understand that I'm a human. I understand that sometimes your thoughts are irrational and that you can't even explain them. And then I kind of just let them come and then let them go.
And then you focus on what's the next right action. This next question will help people and you identify how you deal with that. How do you deal and learn to, maybe you answered it already, but how have you learned to deal with upset, heartbreak, pain, and suffering in your life?
Uh to let myself acknowledge and feel the pain and the upset and the disappointment and the failure and the rejection, let myself feel it. I'll throw myself a little like pity party, and then I will immediately clean up the metaphorical restaurant that we're in throwing this pity party, and then I will be ready to host the next event. And the next event is the progression of where we're going. The next event is, oh, I okay, it's time to get better. That's fine. That's fine. You don't feel good now, but like we have another reservation coming in at 7:30. Like
Beautiful.
you don't have this table for a long time.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And so it for you, it means growth.
Yes.
When you're through feeling it, you say, "Great, this is a beautiful opportunity for me to grow, for me to actually become more
Absolutely.
committed to the things that I love, more committed to the people I love." And this is a part of the journey. And what a lot of people miss is that like there's emotional health, which is incredibly important. There's also emotional fitness. There's
Mm.
mental health and there's mental fitness.
Yep.
And how do you put yourself through physical fitness? You put it under stress, you go do reps. It's right in front of you and it's physical. So it's really obvious when you're curling a damn weight. It's not as obvious when you have a thought, and that's a weight, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's a rep. And you can bitch, moan, and complain. And sometimes I do, and sometimes you do, or
Mhm.
eventually you get around to doing it ideally. And you
Yep.
just experience a growth from it. It's always worth it.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Totally.
You gave me this one, but I'm excited to ask it to you. What singular event contributed to the most growth in your life? I think I know the answer. Can I tell you what I think you're going to say?
Yeah.
I think you're going to say moving out. I think, but I don't know if that's the actual answer.
No.
Okay, interesting. What's your answer?
Um, Single event?
Yeah, what singular event contributed to the most growth in your life?
Does losing weight count?
I mean, it's a phase, it's a period, but absolutely, you can talk about that.
It happened in a 6-month period, but
Yep.
like losing the 70 pounds and literally like becoming a different person where people that knew me before in person did not recognize like they would walk by me, like did not recognize me, was probably the most life altering moment in time, even though it wasn't a specific day or
Why? Why?
because it showed me that I could literally become a different person. And
Wow.
I had never believed that before. I thought
Wow.
who I was a fixed was a fixed reality. And that was it. And that's what I those were the cards that I was dealt with. But like when I changed that, I literally felt like I became a new person that needed a new it was wild.
Wow.
It was wild.
Juan and I are really close friends, and I never knew you when you were overweight. I mean, we
Yeah.
met after the fact. And so like that whole phase of your life is it's a mystery to me because,
Yeah.
you've always looked great and you're continuing to look great. And it's just not that when you're overweight, you don't look great, but you might have not looked how you wanted to look. And so,
Yes.
uh, interesting answer. I have one more question, but before I do, where can people reach you? Where can they find you? If they wanted to reach out, if they wanted to connect, if they wanted to book you for an event, how do they do that?
Yeah, I'd say the most common, the place where I hang out the most is Instagram. So it's just Juan Bandana, JuanBendana. LinkedIn as well. And then my website, which is just like first name, last name.com.
Beautiful. Stole this one from Lewis Howes, but I love it and I wanted to know your answer. And it's the three truths question. Do you know this one?
I don't. I think I
You've
had heard
definitely
it
heard it.
in
You've definitely
one
heard it.
episode, but I forget.
You definitely heard it. So I'm going to read it verbatim. The question is, if you could only leave 3 pieces of advice with you, 3 truths, so to speak, when you leave this planet, what would those 3 things be?
3 truths. Number 1, progress over perfection. Number 2, the people in your life matter more than the progress that you make. And number 3 is you can't wait for life to be good in order for you to be happy.
How do people do that last one?
By deciding consciously to be happy amidst the struggle, to be happy amidst the pain, to be happy amidst the I'm not there yet, to be happy amidst the credit card debt, to be happy amidst all of the things that life will happen. Because people wait to get to this arbitrary moment of success or achievement only to realize they look back and they're like, wow, I could have been happy for the 7 years on the way here.
How do you do that? I mean, I know how you do that, but how do you do that so people understand? I think it's more than just a decision, because you can just like, that's like talking to yourself in the mirror if you're overweight and saying, I'm skinny, I'm skinny, I'm skinny. You might convince yourself for like a micro moment, but it's just not necessarily true. And
Yeah.
so how do you do it?
For me, in my life, the most effective thing, kind of going back to a premise that we've talked about quite a bit, is I think our happiness is oftentimes rooted in the progress that we make as individuals, personally, professionally, in relationships. Even if that means like, whoa, I went from 3. It's so interesting how our brains will say, if we can do 3 push-ups and then the next week we can do 7, we're happy. But if we can do 10 push-ups and the next week we do 7, we're miserable because we're getting worse. And what the heck is going on with us? At the end of the day, you could do 7 the next week. Like, both are the same outcome. It's just the perspective that we have of it. So I would say, like, find daily progress. Find progress that you can make every single day.
I
Every Even if that's
100% agree.
reading 20 minutes, anything. Just
Yeah.
make daily progress.
One thing I would just add as an asterisk, I'm sure you'd agree with this. Progress is great. Progress is not enough. You need to have progress in pursuit of a compelling vision, of a goal. It's not enough to just go make blind progress. I don't think that that does it for people, to just go work out without the goal of losing weight, getting stronger, getting in shape, feeling more energized. Have a grand goal or a dream, if you will, and know that what you're doing is moving you toward that, and that will make you happy. But doing blind progress, at least in my experience, hasn't done it for me. Would
Mhm.
you agree?
I totally agree. Have
Beautiful.
clarity on a vision that you want to move towards. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Last but not least, how do people set dreams for the new year, buddy? What do they do?
Oh, understand that. No, here's what I'll say.
Okay.
Uh, Set them before you think you need to. Don't do your goal setting in January. Do it December 10th. Do it December 15th. Do it before. Like, you don't need to do it January 1st. Just do it immediately. That's the first thing. As soon as, like, if you're already doing it in January 1st it's already too late. Like, do it immediately. The second thing is to focus on what you're going to be doing. If you're going to set goals at the beginning of a year, focus, is this daily activity something that I could see myself doing in October, in November? Because most people, actually 75% of people that set resolutions at the beginning of the year fall off after 30 days. 75%. So how do you build the system of, I'm going to do this every single day? Don't commit to something for a 30-day challenge or a 75 hard or a 60-day sprint. Do something for literally 280 days.
It is boring advice, but it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's the damn truth. There you have it, folks. Dare to dream. Set your life on fire. Dude, this was awesome. Hang out for a second, and we'll make sure your file's uploaded.
Let's freaking go.
Peace.